Welcome back to Garage K. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the wiring harness in the engine bay of the carry truck in preparation for the Scuzzle standalone ECU by ECU Master.
And it looks like it's going to have to be modified straight out of the packet, but what's unusual about that?
But before we do that, I have an announcement to make.
Well, that's it. Say goodbye to the front mount. We're not doing it anymore. I've had enough of having long-ass intercooler piping. We're going to make this as short as possible and try to increase response. People in cappuccinos say that it works much better with shorter intercooler piping, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to make it as short as possible, and it will also make things easier for maintenance and things later on down the track, like timing belt changes and things like that. I won't have to remove the intercooler piping to do that. So yeah, this is the final shot of how I did it. Turned out really nice in my opinion. Fit really well. Yeah, there you go. Goodbye. This is a car's computer. This one happens to be from a Cappuccino. This runs all sorts of things inside your car, but mainly controls your engine. Now, if you'd like to go faster in a Cappuccino, one of the easiest things to do is to buy a different one of these that's been tuned differently. It will make your engine respond differently, and it makes you go faster. The most popular are the Monster Sport ECUs, the N1 and the N2. Now, these are known as plug-and-play ECUs because you just plug them in and away you go. You don't have to mess around with the programming or anything of them. Now, with the N1, you need to change the spark plugs that you're using, but that's about it. You need to use high-octane fuel as well. But just changing the plugs and the ECU will give you 90 horsepower, as opposed to the 64 horsepower that the Cappuccino has when you're using this. Now, the N2 is from a kit called the F100 or F111 kit. Those kits made 100 horsepower and 111 horsepower. We won't go too much into the kits, but the N2 is more difficult because you need to change the injectors, the plugs, and the turbo. The N2 can be run on a standard turbo, but you still need to change the injectors and the plugs. Another option with this style of ECU is to run what's known as a piggyback. So you have this one plugged in, and then you have a separate computer plugged into this, and the signal that it interrupts the signal coming from the engine to here, and it basically tricks this into doing what you want it to. It's not as good as running a full standalone, but it works. It's very successful. A lot of people do it. The other option for ECUs is something called a standalone. A standalone ECU is an ECU that you can plug into a PC, program it, and make it do whatever you want. One of these. This is also for a Cappuccino. This is the Scuzzle Motorsport ECU.
I call this a Scuzzle, but it's actually made by a company called ECU Master.
I did an unboxing of it a long time ago, and it's time to put it into the carry truck. But before I can put it into the carry truck, I have to check all the wiring to make sure that it's not going to blow it up first. So I just wanted to show you these so that when I mention an ECU, you knew what I was talking about if you didn't already.
Now, standalone ECUs are a very hot topic, and the reason for that is everyone thinks that their particular brand is better than everybody else's. There's many of them, many of them. So what's the difference between them? Well, there really isn't a difference between them. One isn't better than the other. You might have more support for one particular brand in your country than you do for another brand, but that doesn't make it better than the other. The reason that the Scuzzle is so good, all of the equipment that you need to run a standalone ECU comes with this. You don't have to buy anything extra. It's all right there. If you buy some other brand, you're going to have to buy extra bits. This one, in my opinion, is the best because it's the easiest. It already has a program on it to run your car. It comes with the harness, the wiring, so you just plug it in. Very easy. It comes with everything you need is in the box. Whereas if you buy any other standalone, you have to source different things to get it to work. You can't just plug it in. You have to do the wiring. You have to come up with some kind of tune. It's just not as easy. This is easier. It might be a little bit more expensive than another ECU, but I think the fact that it's easier makes it worth it. Now, which is the best? Well, it depends on your application. A lot of people ask me what's better, the N1 or the N2? Or the N2 must be better because you can get more power with it. Well, that's not exactly 100% true. If your end goal is max power, standalone. Why standalone? It's the best. Standalone is the way to go for max power. Now, if you don't want to spend this kind of money, you don't want to deal with the kind of dramas these things have, because it's infinitely adjustable. If it's not adjusted properly, you could have some serious problems. So if we don't go standalone, we go piggyback. Well, piggyback, it's basically the same as that. If it's not adjusted properly, you're going to have problems. So we step down, we go to N2. N2 is fantastic. I've seen 180 horsepower out of an N2 ECU with the right turbo, the right injectors. No piggyback ECU, just plug it in and away you go. The N1. The N1 is for people who just want to plug it in, want a little bit more power. They're not trying to change turbos because that's a pain. Changing turbos in a Cappuccino is a pain. It's not easy to do. You don't want to pull your injector fuel rail off and everything like that. You want 90 horsepower. 90 horsepower, done. If that's what you want, if that's all you want, the N1 ECU is for you. Why would you go to an N2? The N2 tune is designed for a bigger turbo. It will work with the standard turbo, but it's not as good. The N1 is designed to work with the standard turbo. It will work with a bigger turbo, but it's not as good. Do you see? One isn't better than the other, they just have different applications. All right, here we go. What have we got here? Let's take the seat out. Okay, I'll be looking at this wiring harness. Runs under there, pops out through here, through there to the ECU, and goes along there to the engine harness. I need to check this before I put my Scuzzle ECU in. I also want to remove, see that brown plug down there? There's a brown one and a grey one. They are for things that I'm not using anymore. So I will remove them from the loom totally. Big job, but yeah, it's got to be done, I suppose. Okay, so what we've got is we've got one engine harness here, and the car harness. I made both of these to fit because they're out of a Cappuccino. Now that I've separated them, I can remove all the tape from here and then find out where I've joined the wires and check for continuity and make sure they're going to the right place. I'm not going to install the Scuzzle until I know for sure that this is correct. So it all has to come out. As expected, I had GoPro problems. As a result, I have no footage of me removing any of the harness from the car or fixing any of it. But I do have this, and it's a bit of a spoiler. Alright, because I'll be going side mount in the carry truck, I've decided to go with an MR2 intercooler and use the MR2 fan. MR2, the SW20, the later model MR2. Now, a friend of mine ordered some looms, some car harnesses, and he didn't need all of it. So I luckily have this. Now it's just a matter of removing this from the loom so that I can use it in the carry truck. Alright, that grommet I might be able to use somewhere, so I'll keep that. I'm after this plug here. Okay, so you're joining there. If this is split, then I'm cutting it. If it's just tapped into, then we can cut off the extras. Yeah, just a crimp onto there. So we'll get a pair of side cutters. Get rid of these ones. How to make your MR2 lighter. Take away some of this tape. Jeez. Layers on layers of tape. Pretty incredible. It's a bit excessive in my opinion.
In true Garage Case style, we had GoPro problems. As a result, I was unable to film me fixing the harness in the car. What did I do? Well, I completely removed the harness from the engine, stripped all that back, removed a couple of wires that didn't need to be there, and then put it back in again. I then double checked all of the harness that's attached to the car and the ECU. I found one wire that was going to the wrong spot, but it wasn't connected to anything, so that didn't matter. So where are we now? Well, the harness is all back in the car, all finished, all ready to use with the Scuzzle. I got an email from Scuzzle and said that some of their ECU wiring harnesses had a problem, and mine might be one of them. So I checked it, and sure enough, mine needed to be modified straight out of the packet. But there's nothing unusual about that, is there? There was one wire that was wrong. If I recall correctly, it had something to do with you turning the headlights on and it blowing one fuse. But Scuzzle gave me instructions on how to fix it. I did, it's done, it's ready to install. So what's next? I will be doing a video on the Scuzzle ECU installation now that my wiring harness is done, but that won't be until next week, I think. No doubt something else won't fit or will be broken, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Anyway, that is the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more, press the subscribe button. If you would like to get your name on the door and support this channel, you can do that. Details in the description, or you can do it at www.garagek.com. I'll see you in the next one. Later.